Hi, haddowinc here. If you watched last week's episode, you'll know that this week's has a bit of trouble with its audio. Vicky's mic wasn't working properly, so she sounds a bit lower quality than usual. It's not too noticeable, and I think the video still comes out alright, so we decided not to re-record. As you can see, this is over an hour long, but just something I wanted to mention here at the start. Either way, please enjoy Big Nostalgia's coverage of Banjo-Tooie. Hello and welcome back to Big Nostalgia. This is the podcast where we take games from our childhood, we open them up, we look inside, we say, "Oh, that's interesting," and then we share it with all of you. I am haddowinc.
And I am VicStar. Maybe in that box we might find something that we forgot was even in that box to share with you all. That's always a fun one with these games. Stuff that I was like, "Oh, I remember that," or "Oh, I forgot it did that."
Well, some of these games are games that we haven't really revisited since we played them as youths. But not this week. As young people. As adolescents.
Oh, goodness. Let's not work out the years of how long it's been since we played these games.
But it doesn't matter this week anyway, because this game...
Obviously,
we've played very
recently, obviously. This is a good game. This is an awesome game.
Because it's Banjo-Tooie.
Banjo-Tooie! Banjo-Tooie!
The sequel to Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah, the hint's in the name.
The thing is, what I learnt when doing the research for this episode is that there are apparently 2 wikis dedicated to Banjo-Kazooie. Both seem to have the exact same information, just in different orders.
How funny.
You have the Banjo-Kazooie wiki, which is the one I thought was the only one, which I used to use when I was writing Banjo-Tooie Abridged. And apparently there is also Jiggy Wiki.
Okay.
Which, I mean, it's a fine name, but it seems like it's trying to be a pun, but I'm not sure it's supposed to be a pun of.
Yeah, it feels a little bit pointless when there's already Banjo-Kazooie Wiki. I mean, it's in the name, isn't it? So
maybe there was an internal struggle and they had to split into 2 identical wikis.
Even though they have exactly the same sort of information.
Yeah, no, the bit of information, though, that I wanted to bring up first is Tooie, and both of them feel the need to state this, is a combination of Kazooie and Two.
What? Mind blown. I'm sorry, but if that's not mind-bogglingly obvious, then leave. Now. Out. Off you go. Bye.
For those of you that are still here, Banjo-Tooie was released in the year 2000, well, at least in North America and Japan, and then it was released in April 2001 for Europe and the UK. And I actually remember this because mine and VicStar's brother has his birthday in April, and it was Banjo-Tooie that he got us for his birthday that year.
Nah.
Do you remember that?
No, actually. I forgot. I gotta admit, I remember Banjo-Kazooie.
I forgot we had a brother.
Wow. Sorry, bro. I remember that Ocarina of Time and Banjo-Kazooie were mine. Because, sorry folks, but these were the only 2 Nintendo 64 games I owned. Because I relied heavily on just our family games and our older brother's games. But I forgot who owned number 2.
To be fair, though, if you were only able to own 2 games on the N64, you had some cracking choices.
I know. Out of the 2 games of the entire N64 collection, personally, I think I owned the 2 best.
Yeah, if you look at raw numbers, maybe you own the least, but average quality, you're probably really high because you didn't have any bad games dragging the score down.
No. But, of course, out of our general collection, we had a couple more to bring the score down.
So anyway, Banjo-Tooie is the game we're talking about now. So this game started its development in June 1998. So actually that is the month what Banjo-Kazooie was released in. So as soon as Banjo-Kazooie came out, they're straight on with the sequel. As always, the game was delayed. It was meant to come out in 1999 in quarter 4, So that'd be, Christmas? But it was delayed to, like I say, the end of 2000, the beginning of 2001.
Well, they always hope, don't they, to get it out before Christmas. That is like premium game, console, movie, DVDs sort of time for stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think Rare, bless them, they seem to have a few big hit games that were like, we'll get it out for Christmas. You look at the release date and it's like June.
And you're like, what?
Well, they tried.
Yeah, they did. And to be fair, it's great that they started working on it so soon after the first one, which is why I feel that between the two games, there feels like such a correlation within, of course, the storyline, the design, and like the characters, characters, as in like how the characters feel and how the characters act. It feels very much what they would have done.
Yeah, no, you can kind of tell that they must have had some ideas, because at the end of obviously Banjo-Kazooie, they go, Grunty's like, you just wait till Banjo-Tooie, I think.
Yeah, she creates it in some
they,
way, doesn't she?
Yeah, then they tried it again in this game, and that didn't particularly play out very well, but we'll get to that. So there was some of the stuff that I found when I was looking is that they had demos for this game at the show Space World 2000 and E3 2000, because left in the game's code is like the dialogues from those demos. Yeah. Like there's a talk between Banjo-Kazooie and Grunty when you try and leave the demo area, and Grunty goes, no, you can't go back there yet, the game's not released. And then Banjo's like, but we will be able to go out there when the game comes out, right? And Grunty goes, only if you've got the expansion pack for the 8 megabytes of RAM.
Does she actually?
It's something like that. Hold on, I've got the website here. I was on like the wrong side of the website, so now I'm just scrolling like a mad person. Hold on, yeah. So it's trying to leave the area, and the thing is, it doesn't have the characters, because this is just what the code would have called. You know, the code would just call the text. So I'm guessing this is Kazooie. Oh dear, this won't do at all. Oh, what's happened now? It's Grunty. 8 megabytes of memory are required to access all the features in this E3 2000 demo version of Banjo-Tooie.
Wow.
And then Banjo replies, or Banjo or Kazooie replies, but I only have... Oh no, it is Banjo, because of the next line. But I only have 4 megabytes of memory in my machine. I know, stupid bear. This means you'll not be able to explore the main worlds until an expansion pack is fitted.
Wow.
But the final version of Banjo-Tooie will definitely run in 4 megabytes with all features enabled, won't it? Of course it will, you furry fool. Right, I'll just go find that expansion pack then.
Wow. Okay. That's funny.
So it's interesting that obviously when they were working on it, they had to use the expansion pack looks like some of the development. They must have been able to then, during like the optimization process, get it running without.
Well, we have found with the Nintendo 64 games that the size of the N64 was a development issue for some games, and that's something that a lot of the games have had to seriously consider and adapt to in their development period. But all the games seem to have made it work. There's not a lot of games on our list that rely on like memory packs or anything like that.
Yeah, and even DK64, which we talked about last year, that was bundled with a memory pack. But that game ran in 4 megabytes.
Yeah, so it didn't need one, but
it just had a random glitch that they found was fixed by the memory pack.
So it was just kind of like, here, just in case.
Yeah, and I think it was, I believe it was like a massive loss for Nintendo and Rare to like package the memory pack with the game, but...
That happens.
So anyway, that's kind of the development, obviously delayed by around a year, but you know, what great game isn't? So the story of the game then, so it's 2 years later, so actually, when you work with the time frames, it was just over 2 years later that the sequel came out.
So they totally prepared that, didn't they? Oh no, it can't come out just yet. We're not ready. It must be timed right.
Or they just went back and changed it from 1 to 2 years or something like that in all the text.
Well, I suppose it's only in the
Um,
very first opening text that would even come up.
And then you've got Klungo, who is, well, at the end of the last game, Banjo and Kazooie defeat the villain Gruntilda and knock her off a roof. And she makes a cartoon hole in the floor, and a rock falls on her.
Which is pretty cartoony as well, to be fair.
So for 2 years, Klungo's been stood by this rock, trying to shift it, but he can't. So then a drill comes out of the wall, which is called the Hag 1.
As you do. You know, why not?
With Grunty Sisters, who are the two new characters in this game, Mingella and Blobelda.
Although we've never had anything about any of her family before now.
Yeah, we did. We had the
Oh, the other sister. She doesn't come back for this one, does she?
No, what's her name? Brentilda?
Yeah, the good one.
Yeah, the good sister. But anyway, Mingy and Blobby lift the rock and make it explode. And Grunty comes back out, but she's now basically decayed underground after 2 years, so she's a skeleton.
Which is, you know, accurate for a cartoon game.
Is it?
Well, I think so. Let's be honest, if you're bringing them back from the dead, she's not going to be, like, pristine, perfect Grunty, is she? She's going to be all, like, maggot-eaten and stuff.
But I don't think she ever died, did she? She was just stuck.
Yeah, but she's still stuck underground. I mean, she hasn't eaten. I'm not sure. Do witches decay differently from us?
I'm not sure. I just know that I thought it was quite creepy when I first saw it.
What, with the bones and stuff?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it never bothered me. I just assumed, yeah, she's been in the ground. She should be a bag of bones.
That tracks.
Yeah.
Anyway, they meanwhile, Banjo-Kazooie, Mumbo, and Bottles are having a poker night.
As you do.
As you do.
Bloke's night in.
And they hear, like, they just think it's an earthquake. That's this drill coming through the wall. But then Grunty comes and blows up the house.
Rude.
Banjo-Kazooie and Mumbo escape, but Bottles is killed.
And this isn't like, you know, pretend sort of kill, just gets poorly. No, he proper dies. There's like a ghost and everything that hovers above the body. It's like, proper, like, if you think Grunty has been just stuck for 2 years, he just got, boom, first, like, 5 minutes, he's dead, he's gone. Just, yeah. For a kid's sort of game, that's pretty cutthroat.
Yeah, it's a lot darker than the opening for the first game.
Ah, I want to be pretty. Oh, she's pretty. Let's steal her. Second game. He's dead!
Yeah, it's I'll kill you. Oh, damn, I didn't kill you, but I killed him, so it's fine.
Yeah. But it worked in well with the story, and I think it was a good move for them to do.
And I think, given the characterization of Banjo and Kazooie, they need like motivation to actually do anything.
Yeah, they need like a revenge or a save or whatever it might be.
Because I honestly think if the drill had come in, got Grunty out the ground, and then they just left, pretty sure that Banjo Kazooie would be like, eh.
Yeah. Oh, isn't that the horrible hag that stole your sister? Well, I'm sure she'll be back soon. And there's Grunty taking over the world, and Banjo-Kazooie just still playing poker. Or sleeping. Because let's be honest, most great heroes start games sleeping.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of like the inciting incident. So then they go off into the world and kind of, well, there's 9 more worlds, 90 more jiggies.
They follow the tracks of Hag 1 to find that dastardly Grunty. And they find very interesting characters along the way who get affected by Grunty and her sisters. Such as, well, I'm sure we'll go into characters a little bit later. But the worlds are pretty good. I think for a second game, they managed to still keep the worlds quite interesting and unique. With all the banjo sort of feels to them, like the flying and the jumping. With a little bit of added stuff into it.
So yeah, since we're on the topic, let's do levels. So on average, levels in this game were bigger. They're about twice the size of in Banjo-Kazooie.
But to be fair, that they included, there was a lot of stuff that you couldn't do until you opened certain bits. There was a lot of intertwining due to, of course, the train and Mumbo being a playable character.
Yeah, so you had some areas you couldn't access straight away, which required you to come back later. You had like the train network, which meant it felt like one big world.
And I thought that was quite an interesting concept to have the train, because it makes the whole experience of going after Grunty feel a lot more like exploring a world rather than exploring levels in a game, because you're opening up new areas, but then they link back to old areas. It feels like an actual area that these characters live in rather than just a game. I mean, we go through the Jinjo's town, to be fair, and their houses where they live. We meet King Jingaling, who is a ruler of that little sector. If you compare if you compare this game to, say, America, each area is their own little state, and we're just exploring the country.
I've never thought of it like that, but that's kind of an apt analogy. Like every area every area is different, but you can still tell you're on the same island. Feel like you're exploring the whole island because you get to like the cliffs, and then you like get to like the more industrial bit. You get,
Yeah, there's certain
there's changing
limitations
terrain.
that make it feel like an island. But in comparison with the very first game, I mean, yeah, you go through Grunty's head and it's her lair, but of course it feels like levels. You reach the ice level, you reach the water level. It's very much a build your way up to the top of the tower to beat the big boss, whereas this is in a way, you could compare it very, very loosely to an exploring game, because you're exploring the world, you just have a set path.
Yeah, and actually, like as we've been discussing it, I've been thinking that actually it's a subtly good bit of game design actually to have the Hagwon tracks, because it means that you can never get too lost.
No. And is it dino level, and you see the tracks and they're going up the wall, and you think, like, bugger, how am I supposed to get up that wall? That wall is like totally too high. It makes you want to explore, it makes you want to open the levels, it makes you want to, to get all because then you can keep following the tracks to the ultimate thing, which is to find Grunty.
Yeah, exactly. So some of the worlds actually were planned for Banjo-Kazooie, but they were cut for time. So that is, I believe it's just Glitter Gulch Mine, Witchy World, and specifically the far side of Hellfire Peaks were all due to be in the first game. But they were cut. Obviously, the most prominent one is Hellfire Peaks' Fireside, just because when you do the Gobi quest in Banjo-Kazooie, at the end he runs off to go to the Fire World.
And you kind of think,
which was meant to be in the same game.
What is he talking about? That Gobi and his drugs.
And then, so actually, whilst we're talking about levels, there are, you have the overworld, but after that you've got 8 levels. Well, you've got 8 levels in the overworld. How many can you name?
Dino Land. I'm going to name them wrong.
It's not its name.
I'm going to name them wrong, but there's the Aztec. There's the Cloud Cuckoo-Land, which is the last one.
Yep.
From the first to the last. Witchy World. You've got the beach one, where you have to hydrate the water so you can go down. Oh no, it's a harbour, isn't it? The harbour one. And then you have to hydrate the water. You've got Ice and Fire. I've done this in a really odd order. You've got Dino Land. I'm missing 2. You've got the industrial one, which is Grunty's Industries. Yep. And then you've got number... Which one am I missing?
I've already mentioned it, if that helps.
Oh. I've said the Ice and Fire, haven't I? Oh! Glitter Gulch Mine. Hey! Yep. I know I didn't name them, but that's probably the closest I'm ever going to get.
And the overworld was the Isle of Hags. Yeah. So, to go through them with their names, Mayahem Temple, Glitter Gulch Mine, Witchy World, Jolly Roger Bay, Pterodactyl Land was what we were looking for. You were close. Grunty Industries, Hellfire Peaks, Cloud Cuckoo-Land, Oh, and I guess Cauldron Keep.
Well, yeah, that'd be the last bit, isn't it? When you
Hmm.
meet old the sisters free. So, while we're talking about it, which one's your favourite?
Hmm.
He says.
Probably Witchy World.
Yeah, I was going to say Witchy World. Witchy World or I quite liked Pterodactyl Land. Yeah,
Yeah.
I loved walking around as a giant T-Rex. That was pretty cool. And with the cavemen
Hmm.
and how that linked in and everything. But of course, Witchy World, I mean, it really was like a run-down amusement park. You had the Spaceland, you had the Western bit, and it links in very well. That is one of the main levels that is kind of got its fingers in all the other levels. I mean, you can get through to Dino Land, you can get through to the train, you can get through to Glitter Gulch Mine. It all seems to link in
Hmm.
that one.
Yeah, there's a lot of different sub areas that makes it feel very varied,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of like links to the other levels as well. And like you say, there's just something about like the weird abandoned theme park, amusement park theme that really like I don't know. I enjoy. What is your least favorite level?
I never like water levels. It's not what was it called?
Jolly Roger
It wasn't
Bay.
Jolly Roger's Bay fault because it was an interesting enough level, and I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more if I just don't like water levels. I find them really boring. I find them a lot harder, and I just don't remember like the level as well as some of the other ones.
See, I would have to disagree with you. I'd say,
What?
as
Rude.
far as water levels go, Jolly Roger Bay is probably one of my favourite water levels.
Okay.
So that's a strong qualifier there, water level, because the bit at the beginning gets you to make it so you don't have to worry about air, which is a constant pain in a lot of water levels.
Yeah, that's fair
And
enough.
then like the music's really good, and the submarine then makes it even easier just to navigate. Although it is still easy to get
Mm.
lost.
So which would be your least
Uh,
favorite?
I'd have to say it's probably Cloud Cuckoo-Land,
Okay.
because it just becomes a bit too. It's just almost too spread out,
Okay, it's too big
and
of a
it's
level.
and like some of the jiggies in there are just really awkward to follow.
Yeah.
Like there's the guy that there's Mr. Fit who you have to like race 3 times, but in order to get to each of his locations, it's just more and more complicated stuff. And there's like it felt like a load of stuff just dumped in a map
That's fair enough.
rather than the others which were a lot more connected. Like know a lot of people aren't fans of Grunty
I love
Industries,
Grunty's Industries. I think it's
but
great.
that's the thing. I
I think it's
I think the way
yeah.
it progressively opens up as you explore means that it's not like if you could access every floor really easily from the
That would
beginning,
be boring.
I think that would be a
Yeah.
problem.
I mean, you open up the lifts and there's those little bugs flying around that are gonna, like the security cameras that are gonna catch you. And there's rabbits who have, like, such a simple concept. They've just got dirty clothes and you have to go around
Hmm.
washing them. But I just felt that I don't know. It was quite involved. I can see what you mean by Cloud Cuckoo Land, but I've gotta love Evil Mumbo. Oh shit! Spoilers! Spoilers! Evil Mumbo. He is like a nice little like mini boss. Is not expected. It kind of like slips in really nicely there. And yeah, and you get to meet the bird lady again, which I found was pretty cool. So it kind of
I think
ends up some of the storylines quite nicely.
Yeah, no, I like how there's characters you meet in early levels that you then meet again in like later levels. In terms of bosses, I think Evil Mumbo or Mingy Jongo, as he's called, is pretty cool. To, like just because it's compared to the others, which are like massive beasts. This is actually this. He's probably the smallest
Yeah, and
boss.
he's more just it's just beating him, just being cleverer than him, just being faster than him, rather than oh my goodness, he's massive.
Hmm.
Although, if we're talking about bosses, you always have to mention Mr. Patch, is it?
Yes, What, the Witchy
Yeah.
World boss?
Giant inflatable evil dude. You have to shoot him with
And he
eggs.
actually does get... And that's the thing. He gets... As you pop his patches, he does actually
Smaller and
get
smaller.
progressively smaller.
Which makes sense.
Which makes him harder to hit as
Well,
well.
while we're talking about levels, I just have to say that I absolutely adore the details in the levels. Rare have an ability to put so much detail into every part of the game. But obviously, we've been talking about the way the levels all link in together. But I'm talking about like Witchy World. You talk to the opening bit, and it's Grunty, and she's saying, "Welcome to Witchy World." You get some food, and you try to leave, and she kind of like tells you off or kicks you out or something. Like, you're not supposed to do that. There's like loads of little bits. Like, you see the sign, and you don't really think about it, but they follow through, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not just an empty threat. If you leave, they actually do
Like, take the food.
take your food.
So it's little details like that. You're just like, yeah.
So yeah, on bosses then, obviously every level had a boss this time.
Yeah, I'm not sure I could name all the bosses. I mean, the Mayahem Temple, wasn't it like the stone footy game? Was that a boss?
No, it was So going through them, you had Target Zan,
Oh,
who
yeah,
was
the
you had
shootout.
to go through Target Zan's
Yeah, the
temple.
shootout one. Yes, yeah, I didn't like that. I wasn't too fussed about that.
No, and to be honest, that boss is actually, I still find it. Maybe it's just because the shooting mechanics in Banjo-Tooie were never like the most precise, but I always found that boss a bit awkward.
Yeah.
You had Old King Cole, who was in Chuffy.
I never really thought of him as a
Chuffy
boss.
being the train.
But yeah, he is, because then you can use a train, but he was quite easy to beat.
That's the thing. I think the Klungo boss fights, because you fight Klungo 3 times, and Old King Cole are purposefully quite easy because they're mandatory.
Yeah. Whereas the other ones, if you want to do a collectathon and get all the jiggies, and you have to do them eventually.
But arguably, you could beat the game only doing the 3 Klungo fights, Old King Cole, and then the final boss. So the other ones are Lord Wu Fak Fak, Terry, Weldar, the welding iron from Grunty Industries.
Yeah.
You had Chili Billy and Chili Willy, the dueling dragons.
Yeah.
And then Hag 1, which was the final one.
You know what? I still don't think I've completed that game. I think I got to a certain...
I don't think I've ever...
I might have got all the way to the Grunty's Industries and Cuckoo-Land, but I don't think I ever completed it.
I don't think I've ever 100%ed it, but I've definitely beaten it because...
You had to.
Yeah, I had to because we were making a series on it and I recorded all my own footage.
Which, if you haven't checked out, please check out on our other channels. It is awesome.
On this channel,
On
Vicky.
this channel, even better.
VicStar.
You don't have to go far.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo!
And actually, to be fair, when we were doing that was the first time I'd done some jiggies. Because some of them were just so awkward to, like, do, but we'd written script for them.
Yeah.
Like racing Mr. Fit. I never really bothered with that one.
But you had to for that because it was in the script.
Well, to do that, you have to find one of those weird seed things in Cloud Cuckoo-Land, put it in place, get Kazooie... No, wait. Because there were eggs and there were seeds in that level. The eggs had those weird floaty things. So you had one of those. But then you also had a seed. So Kazooie had to hatch the egg to get the floaty thing out. Then Mumbo had to do the rain dance to make it rain, to make the seed grow into a beanstalk. And then, as just Banjo, you had to hover over the gap with the floaty thing, climb up the beanstalk, and then you could race Mr. Fit.
So there's a lot of faff, really.
That's the thing, and the criticism this game does get, and it is warranted, is that sometimes it's just not clear what you have to do.
I've got to admit, I look at this game with a lot of nostalgia goggles because it's one of my favourite Nintendo 64 games. But at the same time, if we're comparing this game to something like Donkey Kong, and our critique of that was that there was too many items, this game, you could argue that it was too as you said, convoluted. There was too many little steps that you had to do to get a big step, which was, as you said, unclear or a bit kind of too much.
I actually like,
You could argue.
and this again, this may be my nostalgia glasses talking, but actually, when I was doing my research, I actually wrote this down in my notes. Is I always forget that this game came out after Donkey Kong 64, because I thought it was like they did Banjo-Kazooie, they did a little bit, they did Banjo-Tooie, they did a bit more, or a decent amount more, and then Donkey Kong was like the bridge too far.
It was just that bit too much, bit too pushing it.
Because that, at least in this, whilst you have Mumbo, I guess the duo can split up. Like, that game had like the 5 Kongs of all their unique stuff. At least like Mumbo didn't have his own set of notes.
Yeah, Mumbo was just literally there to do the magic and to kind of bugger off again.
The sweet spot is definitely somewhere between Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie.
While we're talking about this, I actually really like the level sizes. Out of all the games, if you're comparing all the three Banjo games, and I'm talking about Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, and the ukulele, which was based off the sort of mechanics, I'd say my favourite size level is Banjo-Tooie. It had a nice, big sort of feel to it without being ukulele. It's just huge.
And also, they introduced the warp pads in this game as well.
Oh, now why don't you have warp pads and ukulele? It doesn't make any sense. Warp pads are the best. It means that you can go here and then go back and go here again without just getting lost or whatever. I love warp pads.
And it meant if you're just going back for like one thing, you could usually do it pretty quick. Like, it made backtracking less of a pain.
So you come in the level, you go to the warp pad that's always by the level. You think, I just need to go as Mumbo and just make my dinosaur big. So you jump to Mumbo, you jump to the dinosaur, you jump back to Mumbo, and you're kind of good, you know? It's just so big in ukulele, and I just don't know why they don't have some sort of warping ability when they had it very clearly in these two games. But
yeah,
because of course the way that the levels are set out in the world, it makes sense that they're a little bit bigger than Banjo-Kazooie. And Banjo-Kazooie, of course, being stuck as paintings, they could only be so big. So I just like what they did with it.
So let's list the collectibles. We've got jiggies, notes, red feathers, blue eggs, fire eggs, ice eggs, grenade eggs, clockwork kazooie eggs, gold feathers, jinjos, globos, honeycombs, empty honeycombs, question mark honeycombs, exclamation mark honeycombs, treble clefs, which are just worth 20 notes, and N64 game packs containing ice keys and stop and swap eggs. And if we include stuff that's specific to a level, we have jiggy pieces, big top tent tickets, doubloons, seeds, and Target Zan statues. Probably more I missed.
See, when you're playing the game, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of collectibles. Like in Donkey Kong, it feels like there's a lot of collectibles. But you list them all off, I was just like, oh yeah, and that one. Oh, I suppose I wouldn't count eggs as a collectible because they're an ability.
They're expendable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, is that this feels like a lot when I list it like that, but a lot of them were just variations on each other.
Like there's 5 different types of eggs. They didn't feel like you were collecting them to be able to do them, but collecting them wasn't an issue because it was just another ability.
Also, this game does what I'm absolutely baffled they did not do in Donkey Kong previously, and that they didn't do in Ukulele, is what it did is it had nests. So there wasn't 100, there was still 100 notes, but there were never individual notes. There was, each one you picked up was 5 notes, and every level had at least one treble clef, which was worth 20. So actually, it goes from being 100 notes to collect in Banjo-Kazooie, so you've actually only got about 24 things to find, roughly. Wait, less than that would be 2019. I don't know.
If you think about how big the levels are compared to Banjo-Kazooie, it makes sense to have nests and collections and the 120 note one to make it easier to
Yeah.
find. If they're all individually noted, that would be so hard in a level that big. And of course, that's some of the issues with the later games.
And yeah, that's the thing. Like with the red feathers, I think picking up one gave you like 10 red
Instead of
feathers.
just
Like the
one.
eggs were the same.
Yeah.
And then again, like those different variations on honeycombs, but those are just like random drops.
Yeah, and if you got it, it was like okay, but it never really. No, none of this hindered gameplay.
It was a more polished version of what they were going for in DK64, I think. But again, let us know in the comments if this is just our rose-tinted glasses.
See, we want to hear what you
biased.
think. Definitely if you're a big Donkey Kong fan. But shall we move on to the characters?
So I think we've touched on a lot of the characters.
But we can talk about the ones who have come back for both games as well. I mean, obviously.
So obviously you've got the main cast, which is Banjo-Kazooie, Bottles. He's kind of degraded to
just
a guest star.
Background sort of talked about, but not really, obviously played anymore. His new substitute is it his brother?
His brother Jam
Jazz. I can't remember if it was his brother or his uncle, but brother, ex-military or in the military, very smart, very what sort of mole. And don't worry if you're big into the rhyming from Grunty, because he continues the rhyming tradition because her sisters don't like it, so she has to stop.
Yeah.
Which is a very wise move of the creators, because I don't think they wanted another whole game with her rhyming all the time.
And actually, interestingly, Jam Jars's rhymes were written to incorporate the N64 buttons.
Oh, okay.
But they couldn't be bothered to rewrite them all for the Xbox release, so now some of them just don't rhyme.
Well,
if you're going on your way, just go up and press X.
Yeah, well, you should have gone Nintendo 64, shouldn't you? So, meh.
So, we've also got, obviously, Grunty is back, Klungo, Mumbo, who is a now playable character. He's got promotion.
Yeah.
I mean, his controls are pretty basic, but I think that works.
Yeah, well, as we said, we didn't want an extra character that you had all these collectibles for, or had to do all this sort of thing for. His literal aim is that he's a magic man, and you play as him so you can do the magic and go back, and you can defend yourself if you're attacked, which is pretty helpful, because of course, just because you're him doesn't mean there's not baddies about. So they're two, that's all he's needed for. But to replace the whole transformation side, because of course Mumbo's kind of stepped away from that, is Humba Wumba, Miss Humba Wumba, in her Indian tent.
Yeah, and there's a transformation now in every world, whereas in Banjo-Kazooie it was only in a few.
Which is quite good. I mean, with the world sizes, it makes sense that you can do the transformations in every world, because there's so much more you can do with it. You can really have it incorporated. Whereas I suppose in some of the Banjo-Kazooie worlds, maybe it's just they couldn't think of the right sort of way to do it. But she's a pretty cool character. I mean, she's got her globos instead of the Mumbo tokens.
And her and Mumbo just don't like each other.
Yeah, they both think each other's are hacks, which is, if you're talking to two doctors and one's telling you one thing and one's telling you the other, that's the sort of relationship they're going to have, isn't it? So,
well, 2 out of 2 doctors recommend globos. And that's one thing this game does as well, and kind of talking about how it simplifies the formula from Banjo-Kazooie, is like in Banjo-Kazooie you had to find Mumbo tokens, and by the end you had to find like 25.
Yeah, wasn't it a 5 to a move?
I think every time it went up by 5, but you paid them, so you lost them. So you had to find 5, then the 5 were taken, then you had to find 10, then the 10 were taken.
So it was a lot more of a hassle.
It's
literally 2.
This time you need a globo.
A globo for her, a globo for him. That's it.
And they're usually located right by the skull or
If this
wigwam.
is your first time, or if you're going to go and play this game for the first time, do not use a globo in a different like area, because you could find it in Cuckoo-Land, for example, and then use it in Witchy World if you wanted to, but we'd really recommend not doing it because, as haddowinc said, they're normally in the area, so there's normally always one close by to that tent.
Helps you keep track if you just
Can't find one.
Yeah, if you just use the globo on the nearest place.
It's literally, you give it in, you get a power. It's pretty much simple. And I like all the different transformations. I mean, I'm guessing you have a list of all the transformations you can do. Shall I give it a go? I'm guessing.
I mean, I don't, but I'm pretty sure I could name them. So
do you
yeah,
want to
give
name
it a go. Okay, so you got your Stony,
them? Yeah.
the TNT,
Yep.
Van,
Yep. Money van.
Submarine,
Submarine.
T-Rex, washing machine, Snowball,
Oh, yeah.
Bee, and that's all of them.
Yeah, I think my least favourite was Snowball. It was just,
Well, the thing
you
is,
just roll.
that was
You're
only
just a
really used
snowball.
once.
It's really boring.
I think it was. Oh, actually, I think it was used twice. You have to use it to hit the train switch for the ice side of Hellfire Peaks.
Yeah.
Because it's bigger. And then you have to, like, take the snowball through the fire side in order to get to, like, the drilling pump.
Yeah.
And that drills up, like, another jiggy.
But yeah, I wasn't really impressed by the snow black pool. It was like, oh, we're in a snowy level, what can we be? It's just another transformation. Whereas the T-Rex, that's a way that they've really, if you think about it, they didn't have to have two sorts of magic. They could have just stuck to Mumbo again and had him do the transformations. But to make it different from the first one and to make it more like a bigger feel of the world, I think the best example of that is the T-Rex. I mean, you can jump around and roar like a little T-Rex and scare cavemen, but then you can transform her literal wigwam, jump in your giant T-Rex, and the different gameplay you get from that is great. And they really thought of that with the level design, and it's a great way of incorporating both powers into one concept.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head there. It's like, despite the fact it's the same transformation, and even all the action buttons are the same, like, you got just a jump and a roar. Big T-Rex goes around scaring everyone, and, like, you can traverse a lot of the ground levels, but you need to be the little T-Rex to get in those little T-Rex holes.
Yeah.
And then that T-Rex also can talk to the other dinosaurs.
So both have a good gameplay.
The same transformation, but both have functionality in the game.
So yeah, I quite enjoy that.
No, I think, the bee was just recycled from Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah, but it's not a bad character. I mean, you can waddle, you can fly. It's not a bad character. I mean, it's Cloud Cuckoo-Land. I'm guessing by that point it's like, what, as you said, Cloud Cuckoo-Land is a little bit of a mix and a kind of a broad spectrum of what their real focus was. We're in the air, big, yeah, why not? But another character that was a returning character is the Camel.
Gobi
the Camel. I thought that was a really nice little kind of like hello to the one before, because of course he wanders off and then you find him trapped in Witchy World and you have to free him, and he goes to Hellfire Peaks, doesn't he? And then you stamp on him to use his water for something.
You have to cool down the train.
Of course you do.
So that you can take the train to the ice side of Hellfire Peaks.
Obviously, why not?
Without cracking the engine. For some reason.
But I thought it was a nice little like background character to bring back, because you had your little task to do with him, and he's there going like, "Oh, you horrible bear and bird, what are you doing?"
It's like, get the hell away from me.
Just leave me alone.
You're like, I'm gonna come smack on that back.
And then of course you've got some of the new characters. Like each world, let's be honest, each world has a rich set of characters. to
Hmm.
really interact with and explore with and get your jiggies with, get jiggy with
I
it.
think there's something like over 40 or 50 like named characters.
So yeah, let's not go into all. How many can you
Let's
name
not.
now? No.
That I'd just probably switch over to the Banjo-Kazooie wiki tab and just be like, let's just read all these names
At
off.
least you're being honest about cheating.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I really like their characters and what they did to them, and they added like there's so many times that characters are added just for character's sake. These were added for the gameplay, and even like
Hmm.
background characters that you don't really interact with much, like Mrs. Bottles and King Jingaling. They add to the story and to the world and the effect that Hag One is having on this environment.
Yeah, every character has like a personality and a character to them.
I have a
You've
point.
got like
Yeah.
and you've got Master Jiggy Wiggy as well.
Oh, can't forget Master Jiggy Wiggy because of course in Banjo-Kazooie you had the puzzles, so and the pictures on the wall. So you go to your little puzzle bit and you stand on it and you'd have to make the puzzle to open the world. Fair enough. They couldn't really have done that at all in this one. Let's be honest, because it's a more of a free world sort of exploring. So I think doing a
Hmm.
Master Jiggy Wiggy was a great way of still doing the puzzle element and making it harder as you went along without actually having physical pictures of it.
And I like, yeah, and it almost feels like a natural progression. In the first one, you've got these pictures, and you press A and it fills the picture in, or you press Z and it puts all of them in. This time the game's like,
Do it
no,
yourself.
I've had my turn. You do it.
Yeah, can't be
Here's your
bothered.
big floating banjo hand. You complete it.
Yeah.
Interesting thing is that in the code there's a reference to something that didn't make it in, but it was possible at some time it was planned that if you failed a Jiggy Wiggy challenge enough times, he would let you do it without time limit.
Oh, okay.
Because there's like cut text of him being like, "Oh no, you just have as long as you want."
Oh no, you suck. Just do it.
Basically, I think the time does get longer if you do fail it a few times, but there is still a timer.
Yeah, which I think is good because definitely when it gets to the harder levels, it gives that sense of urgency and all that kind of stuff. So, although the
So
hand was always a little bit hard to control personally, definitely again to smaller bits, just trying to work it out.
yeah, it wasn't really designed to be precise at
No,
times.
which was could be frustrating.
So anyway, let's move on to some of the quirks of the game.
Okay.
I like cut content, stuff left on the cutting room floor. We've already been over little bits and pieces, but there is lots for this game, and some of it I didn't actually ever know. So this has been really interesting for me. So let's start first with Spiral Mountain. So the first area of the game, as it was the first area of the first game, there was originally at one time going to be another area of Grunty's lair you could
Oh,
access.
okay.
So in the code of the game, there is code for Grunty's lair brackets tower, and it was going to be that you could, you know, the window on Grunty's tower.
Yeah.
You were going to be able to beak bomb it and go inside, and that would have taken you to a
Oh,
different place in the tower.
okay. Rather than just the front mouth, because of course in the game the front mouth is just where Cheeto lives. Yeah.
Yeah, and the rest of the layer is cut off. I always thought that's like so annoying as a kid because I was like, I want to explore Grunty's lair again, like all run down.
Yeah, but I suppose with such a big game, they
Yeah,
have
it would have been
quite, yeah,
yeah,
a
no,
lot.
as much as it would have been a great you know, like how in Pokemon Gold, once you beat the Elite Four, you can then go to the region from the first game. It would have been far too much work just to like essentially go around just a torn up tower. I think it'd been too distracting.
Mm.
There's also stuff in the code that suggests that, like the Mumbo tokens we were talking about earlier, for jam jars you would pay him the notes.
Oh, okay.
Because obviously in the game as it is in the release, you just have to like hit certain milestones. Just because there is dialogue in the code that suggests that he would like tell you what the move is, and you could like either pay or not.
Oh, okay. So if you had seen that wall with the marks going up and you really wanted to find how to do that, you could have like talked to him and then picked and choose what sort of skill you're going to learn.
Yeah, because if your like notes are getting used up, you might want to be like, actually, no, I want to learn that one first.
Which I suppose is a quality that they've moved on to in ukulele with the snake,
Yeah,
like paying
yeah,
for.
because in that one you pay it.
Yeah.
So, and then there's obviously the fact that Tootie just doesn't come back. She's just on a giant carton of milk.
Oh. Yeah.
There's obviously there's Player 2 mode that was being developed, but Bottles' Revenge. So this plays, after it plays the opening cutscene, it plays another cutscene where Bottles turns into a devil and he decides that he's going to come around with you and make your adventure harder. And that would allow Player 2 to take over all the enemies. So a bit similar to Perfect Dark's counter-op mode.
Yeah.
It was finished for basic enemies, and actually with Game Shark codes you can load it into the game. The reason was that they didn't include it was that it didn't work with bosses.
Oh.
So the only one they ever got it working with was Old King Cole, which obviously is probably the most basic.
I suppose they could have made it that Bottles couldn't have gone in. Like, Bottles wasn't allowed in those areas for whatever reason.
I think that's how it is, and like if you turn it on with Game Shark codes, when you go into a boss, he'll be like, "Oh, I'll see you later," or something like that. Something like he just makes some excuse just to leave.
I suppose that would have been quite a lot to ask. Imagine Mr. Patch, and you're trying to control it as a second player, but all you can see is his leg, because of course it's focusing on Banjo and Kazooie.
Yeah, no, as much as I
it would have been very cool concept, but actually doing it would have been very hard.
As much as I appreciate like the all or nothing attitude of a Rare, yeah, some of those bosses would have just been like, what would you have done as Lord Wu Fac Fac? You're basically just a fish.
Or the Aztec one. You're basically just spinning around, aren't you?
Yeah, I guess you may control the guns. But so that was like.
I do love the concept though.
Yeah, I love the concept, and like that cutscene's quite good. That did end up making it in. You also have the return of Stop and Swap.
Yes, that egg thing.
Yeah, so in Banjo-Kazooie there were eggs that you could find throughout the game that were meant to unlock stuff in Banjo-Tooie. It's even in the final cutscene, Mumbo goes, if you've got all 100 jiggies, Mumbo shows you pictures of where you can find them, including an ice key. However, the plan for this was that you would get the Stop and Swap items in Banjo-Kazooie, turn off your N64, get Banjo-Kazooie out, get Banjo-Tooie in, and it would load a little bit of data on the N64's central RAM, which then meant when you turned on Banjo-Tooie, it read that data and it transferred the stuff up between games.
Now, that concept is quite advanced, isn't it?
Gaming consoles. It's mind-blowing, really.
It's a great idea. Again, Rare, they had great ideas to try and bring a bit more to just a general gameplay, but obviously it didn't work.
There was a hardware revision, so the early N64s, you'd have had a few seconds where you could possibly do it. Hardware revisions split that down to like a fraction of a second, and there was a chance you'd brick the console.
So yeah, really good ideas, just doesn't turn out exactly in practice.
So what there was instead is there was several hidden locations in Banjo-Tooie where you could find N64 packs of Banjo-Kazooie, and they would give you the eggs or the key, and then the eggs would unlock stuff for, I think, like codes in multiplayer mode, like characters for multiplayer, and the ice key would be was like a whole separate little mini quest.
Yeah.
Because the ice key opened obviously the ice safe, which had a Mega Globo in it,
which was a pretty cool. Yeah. Sorry.
Into a dragon.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. I still think that was a pretty cool kind of like added extra. I mean, you didn't have to do any of this, but to have her breathing fire, I mean, it didn't add much to gameplay, but it was just a cool element.
And the subtle thing I liked is that you had infinite fire eggs.
Yeah. Was of course.
But it was
fire.
It was just it rewarded that extra effort to explore.
Yeah, and it didn't affect gameplay enough that it gave you too much an advantage, but it was a cool enough reward that it was still worth doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was, yeah, it's funny to see those kind of grand plans and they're like, oh well. And then kind of have to do something different in
But they
Banjo-Tooie.
still made it work.
So now onto some cut stuff. So the first one is that there is a cut ginger house, which is still in the game's code and still been modelled the inside. But obviously it was taken out because the name of the ginger house just shouldn't be here.
Oh, love that name. Very original.
And the spots on the walls inside, if you remember how they were designed,
Yeah.
were purple and brown,
Oh.
which is weird.
Mm.
There is a model in the game files of a really muscular ginger with fangs, which is believed to be an early version of a Minjo.
Mm.
But in the final game, obviously, they make the Minjos and the Gingos look the same, so you could be fooled into going over to them.
Which makes more sense. I mean, they're there going, help, help. And the only thing that normally clues you in is the fact that they're really easy to get. But I still remember the very first one that I found, just being like, oi, you little numpty, what are you doing? I'm trying to help you here.
Definitely wouldn't have had the same effect if they were like muscly and had massive fangs. You'd be like, that's not a ginger.
And they're going, help. And you're just like, no.
Would it be that high pitch? Would it be help?
Help. Help.
But the most interesting thing I found, and this was on, I saw this thing when it was originally, one of the designers posted it on Twitter a few years ago, but it's always been like the most interesting bit of something that was planned that didn't get implemented, is that, did you know that originally Cauldron Keep was meant to be a full level of 10 jiggies?
Really?
It was going to be a massive castle, so there's design documents for it. I don't think it got much further than that. But it was still going to have that laser grid door.
Yeah.
And it was still going to require extra jiggies for you to get up the top of the tower. But it was a full castle with a courtyard and a graveyard at the back.
Do you think it's just
like
time
rooms and
or
areas.
space that they ran out of?
I think it was probably time.
Because that sounds like another big... Like, that sounds like the smallest level within the game, but it still sounds like quite a big task.
Based on like reading the design documents and the information people have found out, it looks like it would have been like quite a big level as well. And then it was going to be like, so you'd have that level, and then you'd have that last jiggy door for the final Grunty fight. So in that way, it was the same. And like the central tower was going to be like Cauldron Keep is like metal and like technological, but the rest of the castle was going to be old brick. So it's going to be implied that this castle was already there, but like the witches took it over and built this like extra extension onto it.
Nice.
So that was probably like the coolest thing I saw, and it was going to have like cannons that like fired at Banjo and Kazooie and stuff like that.
Yeah, it feels very Mario, doesn't it? Like a big Bowser castle at the end of a level. But it would have been interesting to see.
I think the only like they did that. Like, I know the final level of DK64 was a full level in itself. But, like, this would be the first Banjo game to do it. Because I guess Banjo-Kazooie, you just get to the top of the tower and that's it.
And you're good to go. I mean, you need to have all the notes and everything like that to unlock it. But you're good to go.
And it was kind of noted that would have put the game up to 100 jiggies as well. So it would have matched the first game.
Would have.
Yeah, it would have, because obviously there's only 90 jiggies in Banjo-Tooie compared to 100 in Banjo-Kazooie. So anyway, let's move on to Legacy / our opinion. So at the time the game was very well received, although it was criticised that it was quite big and at times it was not clearly signposted as to what you were supposed to do. I agree. Its legacy involves 2 Game Boy Advance games. So you had Banjo Pilot and Grunty's Revenge. Nuts and Bolts for the Xbox 360.
Oh, who said that?
And obviously last year, between the Banjo-Kazooie episode we did and this Banjo-Tooie episode, Banjo has been added to Smash Bros.
Woohoo!
What bigger legacy is that?
That's pretty cool.
So before we go into our opinion, let's just... Well, actually, you can include this in giving your opinion, but the question is, do you think there'll be a HD remake like Crash Bandicoot, but for Banjo-Kazooie and
Oh,
Banjo-Tooie?
I hope so. I hope so. And I hope it's done on a Nintendo-based console rather than on the Xbox or on anything else. I want it to be done on the Switch. That would be absolutely mega because let's be honest, Crash Bandicoot has had it done. Spyro has had it done. Yes, both PlayStation 4 games, or PlayStation games now on the PlayStation 4.
Multi-platform games.
Um, but I don't see why they can't do it. I think that'd be great. I think Banjo-Kazooie is one of those games that is very iconic for the Nintendo 64. There's a lot of love out there, and of course, a lot of unfortunately disappointment with Banjo and Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. Definitely, if Nuts and Bolts was the only game of Banjo Kazooie that you ever played, basically you've done
Hmm.
it wrong. Revalue your life and start with Banjo Kazooie because that was the wrong way round. And of course, it let down for a lot of the fans the third in the trilogy that they were kind of hoping for. So the first two originals coming back to a more modern day console, that'd be great. And let's be honest, for Nintendo, they've already done it with Ocarina of Time on the 3DS, Majora's Mask. So it's not something that Nintendo hasn't already done. So basically, 100%, I'm up for that. That'd be great.
Me too.
I agree.
So, what are your closing remarks on Banjo-Tooie?
Banjo-Tooie is always going to be one of those games, along with Banjo-Kazooie and certain Legend of Zelda games, that I cannot help but have nostalgia glasses on. And I am completely admitting that. I'm putting up my hands. That is true. But it doesn't stop it from the amount of work that these awesome creators have put into these games. There's so much detail, there's so much characters. None of the worlds, like there are favorites and least favorites, but none of the worlds were boring, especially in Tui, the way that they all interlink so well using the train and
Hmm.
certain characters. I mean, you have a sick dinosaur in Witchy World that you have to first let loose, then put on the train so Mumbo can heal her, to then take to Pterodactyl World so she can go home. It's so involved and it's so. I know that some of people's critiques about it, that it was, of course, that it wasn't very clear, but I just love how involved and inclusive it is. It just feels like worlds instead of levels. If I had to compare the two, though, I still prefer Banjo Kazooie. It's a the first one. First, you can never really beat the first one in my view. And I loved the lair. I loved the pictures, and I loved the world. I loved the concept. But Tui did a great job in continuing that legacy and just being just as good as the first one.
Yes.
How about you?
No, I think I would agree with everything you said. I think Banjo-Tooie is kind of almost... It's not the perfect collectathon, but you could see if they'd had a few more chances before they got sold to Microsoft, they may have gotten there.
Mm,
Because they went... Banjo-Kazooie was a great starting point. Donkey Kong 64, they saw what too much meant. Banjo-Tooie, they were starting to refine it, and it's a shame that that's when it kind of all stopped. It'd be interesting to have seen what a Banjo 3 on the GameCube would have looked like, based on that.
yeah.
But I agree with you. I still prefer Banjo-Kazooie. It's a lot more... I'll make the analogy to like... Banjo-Tooie and Banjo-Kazooie to me are very much like Portal and Portal 2.
Mm,
Portal and Banjo-Kazooie are like... Their concepts realised within a small game, and everything that needs to be there is there, but not much more. As a result, it feels very
mm.
tight. But then those two games were really successful, and they're sequels. I'm not sure if you played Portal
I
2 yet. I
have.
know you've played Portal
Yes.
1. Yeah. The sequels have all this extra stuff, all these extra features added in, all this extra growth, and they're still fantastic games. but they don't quite match just the simplicity of the realisation of that basic concept that the originals do.
Yeah.
Because sequels always need to be bigger.
Yeah, and there's always a temptation with sequels, isn't there? As you said, to be bigger, to add more, because that is the way you improve a game. You add to it, you build on it. But at the end of the day, I love originals. If it's an original concept, I've played it and I loved it, that's probably going to be my favourite out of the selections, because that is what made me fall in love with the characters, the gameplay, everything. So, but as we said, it doesn't mean that Portal 2 and Banjo-Tooie are bad. They're fantastic. It just means that for second games, you don't always have to go big or go home. Sometimes you can be exactly the same size and still hit the right things that you want to hit. Of course, there's always a risk, isn't there, with a second game? If you don't bring more, is it still going to be successful? It's one of those.
Especially in like the days back then when it was like the consoles were still, I guess they're still trying to push their visuals and stuff now, but back then it was like the beginning of 3D gaming. So obviously you had Mario 64, which was then Banjo-Kazooie was like, we're that, but a little better looking, a little more refined. Then Banjo-Tooie is like, we're that, but we're bigger, and we've got more stuff. And it was a bit more, maybe there was more of an emphasis on it back then to make those considerable step changes in each iteration. Whereas I think today you could have Banjo-Kazooie and then like Banjo-Tooie being like very visually similar, a bit just like maybe more levels or something like that. But I think the levels were about the right size. That if they make another ukulele game, they should make the levels about the size they were in
And
Banjo-Tooie,
add
or maybe
warp
a bit bigger.
pads. I cannot stress this enough. Add warp pads.
And warp pads that allow you to warp to any other warp pad, not the Donkey Kong 64 thing where for some reason it was 1-to-1.
Yeah, that was weird. But yeah, generally, my overall loved the game, but that was a tiny bit obvious if you know our history.
I was going to say, no one I think who knows us listening to this episode will be at all surprised by anything we've said.
Well, I hope
some of the game facts were surprising and interesting.
Yeah, and I hope you've enjoyed our viewpoint on the game and going into it with a lot more detail, because of course we've never really done anything like this about the game. We've only just shown our love by playing it rather than talking about it. So
yeah, and I think like it's a really interesting game. I think it's got a great history, and I think it is one of the great ones of the N64 era.
Yeah. And we really enjoyed talking about it today.
Yeah, so that has been another episode of Big Nostalgia. If you enjoyed, like, comment, share your thoughts on Banjo-Tooie with us. Tweet at us at AbridgedBK on Twitter. There's a Facebook group called Abridged Big Knickers, but I always forget to post on that. And then join us next week. We'll be talking about another N64 game. We're only halfway through the second season. That means 5 more games. What will they be? I can't remember right now.
So
I'm tired. I'm going to bed.
So come and check it out.
See you next time. I've been
VicStar. Bye.
BNN. Do 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 do.
BNN.
Do 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 do.
BNN.
Do 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 do.
Big nostalgia.
Yeah.